There's an entire list of supplements that I hear about all the time with big promises, sealing your leaky gut. And these are some of the most popular products out there. Colostrum, Glutamine, Collagen, Butyrate pills. What's the deal? Honestly, I was wondering myself. So I went and I read the human studies on all of them. And today I'm going to reveal to you everything that I found. I'm a gastroenterologist with over 20 years of experience, and I've treated tens of thousands of patients. And today I'm going to walk you through the supplements that promise to improve your gut barrier. Let's separate the marketing and the hype from the actual science so you can make smarter choices. Let's all get on the same page with what we're talking about today. The lining of your gut is 1 cell thick, 1 cell thick. That thin layer is the border that separates the outside world, everything that you eat, and trillions of microbes in your colon from your bloodstream. Those cells are held together by what we call tight junctions. When the border is working, it allows the good stuff, like the nutrients, to get through, and it keeps the troublemakers out. Leaky gut is the idea that those seals are loosening, and things are now slipping through that shouldn't be there, triggering inflammation because 70% of your immune system is right there on the other side of that gut barrier. Now, there's a scientific term that we use, increased intestinal permeability. And this concept, it is 100% real and a part of the physiology that influences both our gut microbiome and inflammation. It's a topic that I dove deep into in my new book, Plant Powered Plus. But we have to be careful because it's also one of the most oversold ideas in all of wellness. Some people are turning this into a diagnosis that doesn't exist and calling it leaky gut syndrome. That's not in any of my medical textbooks or the journal articles that I'm reading. And tons of companies are out there right now trying to sell you fixes for leaky gut that may or may not have evidence that justifies the price. I'm going to give you every single one of these supplements. I'm going to show you the science that I found when I researched them, and I'm going to give you a verdict based upon one thing: the quality of the human evidence, because that's what matters. So I'm breaking them into 3 specific tiers of verdicts. There's the hype, which basically means, there's no real human evidence here. There's promising but unproven, and there's the ones that actually work. By the end, you'll know exactly where to put your money, and just as important, how to judge the next supplement that somebody tries to sell to you. But before we get right to that, I have to show you something about how these products are sold, because it's going to change how you think about these claims that I'm about to discuss with you. A huge number of leaky gut products point to the same blood test to prove that they work. It's called zonulin, and their pitch is simple. Take our product, your zonulin goes down, and that means that your gut is sealed. I've been hearing this story for at least 10 years, but there's one major problem. And this is a really, really big one. The commonly used zonulin blood test may not actually be measuring zonulin. When researchers went back and checked the popular commercial test, they found it doesn't reliably detect the protein that it's actually supposed to. It appears to pick up totally different proteins, like one called piperidin. In other words, this laboratory test that all these products are leaning on to try to prove that their product works, it's not even measuring the thing they're claiming. And there it is, a whole shelf of products being sold to you on the strength of a number that, honestly, what does it even mean at this point? So I added an important caveat to this entire video. If the only evidence that a supplement can offer is that it lowered zonulin, that's not evidence that I trust. I want real permeability tests in real humans. Now let's start handing out the verdicts. We're going to start with the most popular one out there, collagen. This is literally a $1 billion industry. Here's the logic that they use to support this. Your gut lining, it contains collagen. So therefore, eating collagen must rebuild it. It sounds intuitive, but that's also not how digestion works. You don't eat brains to get smarter. When you swallow collagen, your body doesn't ship it intact into your gut wall. it still breaks it down into amino acids. This is what your body does to literally any protein. It breaks it down into amino acids. And those get used all over the body, wherever they're needed. I went and I looked for human trials to show that collagen supplements actually improve your gut barrier function. Basically, there's no evidence for this endpoint at all. I find that kind of interesting, actually. Let's think about this. We have $1 billion industry. If you were the CEO of one of these companies, wouldn't you want to spend at least a little of all of that money to prove that your product works? Wouldn't that make it easier to market your product? Now, to be fair, collagen isn't totally useless. There is randomized evidence that collagen peptides can improve skin hydration and elasticity over a few months of use. So if your goal is your skin, there is that research, and I would discuss that with your dermatologist. But for sealing a leaky gut specifically, this is marketing built on a metaphor. Final verdict, hype for the gut. Next up is glutamine. Glutamine is a fuel source for the cells that line your gut, which is why it gets sold so confidently. I've used glutamine supplements myself in the past, so I would love to see glutamine be worth its value. But here's what happens when you pool the human trials together. A 2024 meta-analysis of 10 randomized controlled trials found that glutamine did not significantly improve intestinal permeability. The average effect was basically zero. Now, of course, there's always nuance, and I love digging into the nuance. Glutamine is what we call conditionally essential. Under normal circumstances, your body makes plenty of glutamine. But under extreme stress, demand can outrun the supply that your body is able to produce. So for years, the idea was simple. What if you gave the sickest people extra glutamine and it helps them to heal? I'm talking about people who have had serious burns. I'm talking about people that are in the intensive care unit of the hospital. So on paper, it made total sense. But this is why we do research. And they actually tested it. They did a rigorous trial, over 1,200 critically ill patients. Glutamine fed straight into the vein, and it didn't help. In fact, the people who got the glutamine actually did worse. There was a second major trial, and it pointed the same way. So that's a big reason why high-dose glutamine fell out of favor among medical doctors like myself. So sit with that for a second. Even in the sickest people in the hospital, high doses straight into the vein under a doctor's care, and it could not deliver. That is a world away from the average healthy person out there scooping 5 grams into a smoothie to try to fix their gut. So as a daily supplement for a healthy gut barrier, the evidence just isn't there. Final verdict, hype for the way that it's being sold. Number 3, butyrate pills. If you've been following my work, you know this word, butyrate. Butyrate, once again, butyrate. I celebrate it. I love butyrate. It's like my favorite thing. It's a short chain fatty acid. It's the main fuel for your colon cells, and it helps to keep your gut barrier intact and calm. On a surface level, this pitch makes so much sense, right? Because if Dr. B says that butyrate is so good, why don't I just take a butyrate supplement? But when you take butyrate as a pill, most of it gets absorbed almost immediately, way before it actually gets to your colon. So there's a delivery problem. The one controlled human study of a daily butyrate supplement, they took 4 grams a day for a month. And this included both healthy and obese men. Okay, 4 grams a day is a ton of butyrate. And it found limited, at the best, modest effects, no clear systemic benefit. Your body, it doesn't just make butyrate, right? These microbes, they are going to ferment fiber into an entire family of short chain fatty acids that are designed to be in balance. So when we look at these short chain fatty acids, roughly 60% are acetate, 20% are propionate, and 20% are butyrate. And each one serves a specific purpose. Propionate helps to regulate your appetite, helps to control your blood sugar. That is the metabolic short chain fatty acid. And acetate is like the fundamental tool. That's why it's 60%. It actually supports your gut barrier. But also, you can take 2 pieces of acetate, put them together, and you can make butyrate, and the microbes help us to do that. So when you flood the system with butyrate in isolation, what does that do to the balance? Well, we don't actually know because it hasn't been studied in humans. Now, to be fair, in some settings, using specific forms, and that's really important, it's not just any old butyrate supplement. we do have a signal of benefit. This is just a starting point for where I would like to see more research in the future. In ulcerative colitis, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease, a specific microencapsulated form of butyrate, which was coated so that it can survive your stomach and release down in the colon, it was shown to benefit as an add-on therapy in a randomized controlled trial. Notice what they took. This is a specific health condition, and they had an engineered delivery system that is not widely available that gets the butyrate where a plain capsule cannot take it. When butyrate does have evidence to support the gut, it's usually because it's delivered in some complex, different way than what we're used to when we take supplements. So it could be this example of like a specific coated microcapsule, or it could be an enema. Here's the principle that I want you to take away from this, and this is important. Make it, don't take it. We have real human evidence that fiber raises your butyrate. We don't have good evidence that a butyrate pill fixes leaky gut. Final verdict, promising, but unproven. Number 4, colostrum. Bovine colostrum, which is the first milk that a cow produces after giving birth, is packed with growth factors and immune compounds. Of the 4 hyped supplements that I'm discussing, this one does have the most human data. Now, let me be upfront. I'm skeptical at baseline of this supplement because what I see, just calling it what it is a mother cow who's trying to feed her calf. And that isn't exactly the same as us humans, let alone adult humans, taking a supplement thinking that it's going to fix all of our problems. But it's not really about that, okay? It's really about what does the science say? There was a meta-analysis where they actually showed that colostrum did reduce gut permeability on actual gut permeability tests. So if that's true, does that actually prove that everyone should be taking colostrum for their gut? Well, not exactly. There's 3 reasons why I'm still skeptical. First, we have to look at who was in those studies. This was almost entirely athletes who were in peak training, which is a specific way of temporarily stressing the gut. That is not exactly the same as a middle-aged person with everyday bloating and fatigue. Number 2, these studies are all over the place. The results vary so wildly from trial to trial that it's hard to believe that there's something reliable in there. Several of the studies were very small, and many of them are funded by the exact people who are selling the product. So take that for what it is. Number 3, show me the actual evidence that improves gut symptoms, because I haven't seen it. So it's one thing to take a group of athletes and measure their gut permeability, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they experience bloating or a change in bowel habits or some other gut symptom, or they're able to heal their gut, right? So bottom line, there is evidence, and it isn't nothing, but its main claim to fame, is decent randomized controlled trial evidence that it can cut down on upper respiratory infections in people under heavy physical stress, like athletes, or in a different trial, medical students during a hard season. All right, that is immune support, and I acknowledge that. That's legitimate use. But this entire video is about correcting leaky gut for the person who's trying to heal their gut. And within that domain, the evidence is thin, and it doesn't apply to you the way that the ads make it sound. So my final verdict, promising, but with thin evidence and probably best used for something else. So at this point, you might be thinking Dr. B is saying that all supplements are a scam. Well, no, I don't actually feel that way. There are a couple things that we need to talk about that earn their spot because they have real human evidence with real endpoints. And here's the part I love. Neither of them is the one that's being marketed so hard to you. So let me show you these sleepers, the ones flying below the radar that actually work. Zinc, carnosine. This first one, it was distantly on my radar, but actually it surprised me. This is a specific compound that pairs zinc with carnosine, and it's been used for gut issues in Japan for decades. Carnosine is a naturally occurring peptide that is produced by combining beta-alanine and histamine, and you can find it naturally in skeletal muscle, the brain, and the heart. So here's why this one earns its spot. In a randomized trial, Healthy volunteers took a medication known to damage the gut lining and to increase gut permeability. Gut permeability, it roughly tripled during the study, but they had a group that also took zinc carnosine, and their permeability, it did not rise. In fact, it held despite the medication. And notice, that was a real gut permeability test done in normal, healthy people. So like they're not using the zonulin thing. And what I would say is right now, we're off to a good start with this one. Here's what moves it to the top. In the exact same study, zinc carnosine didn't just play defense. It actually pushed the cells of the gut lining to actively repair, to crawl across a wound, and to multiply, roughly tripling the rate of healing in the lab. And in animals, it cut real damage in the stomach and the small intestine. So this isn't just holds the line, this actually helps to rebuild it. Zinc carnosine has been used for decades as a treatment for stomach ulcers. It's a healing agent. It's not just a wellness gimmick. Hold that up against, for example, colostrum. Colostrum nudged a permeability marker in athletes under extreme heat and exercise in tiny studies. And one trial actually found it made permeability worse. No human study says it eases everyday gut symptoms like bloating or bowel habits, and nothing shows it repairs the gut lining. So zinc carnosine not just supported the gut, it helped to rebuild it. Now, there is some nuance that we need to discuss. It was a small study. It used a specific gut stress model, and it's zinc carnosine specifically. So this is not the zinc in your multivitamin. But of everything that we've discussed so far, this is the only one with actual human evidence with the right endpoints. So my verdict is that it actually works and it's worth a look. And now on to the one that I think matters the most. This has by far the most evidence of what you can do for your gut barrier. And it's not exotic at all. In fact, it's not just a supplement, it's fiber. So here's the mechanism, and I love this so much. You feed your gut microbes fiber. And they take that fiber and they work their magic on it, and it stops being fiber. They actually transform it into short chain fatty acids. And this is what we've been talking about. This is butyrate and acetate and propionate. And they're doing that right there at the surface of the lining of your gut, which is exactly where it's needed. So you're making it on site, in balance, continuously. And when researchers pool the human trials together, prebiotic fiber measurably lowers the markers of a leaky, inflamed gut. This is the make it, don't take it principle that I was talking about. So if fiber is the answer, what should you actually look for when you're shopping for fiber? Because add fiber is not as simple as grabbing the first tub of psyllium. So here's what I look for. Number one, is it fermentable? Some fiber just bulks up your stool, and that's fine for regularity. But if you want to feed your gut microbes the fiber that they can actually ferment, it needs to be fermentable fiber. Number two, is it a diverse supplement? So different microbes eat different types of fiber. A variety of fiber sources beats a single isolated one every single time. Number three, are there polyphenols in the mix? They work hand in hand in synergy with the fiber to feed and support your gut bugs and to increase short chain fatty acid production. So we want those too. So where can we get these things? I would start with a diverse, plant-rich diet with lots of different plants across the week. I mean, this is the gold standard. This is what I call the golden rule of gut health. And it's everything that I'm discussing in my brand new book, Plant Powered Plus. But if you're looking for what I see as the optimal supplement, well, I created my own. And the company is called 38 Terra, and the product is called DMN, or Daily Microbiome Nutrition. It's a blend of different fiber types, plus polyphenols, plus resistant starch. It is not just an isolated fiber. In fact, there's 7 unique prebiotic ingredients. And we tested it. Scientists ran a 15-day study in a validated laboratory model of the human gut. And what they found was that DMN was consistently raising short-chain fatty acids, not just butyrate, acetate, propionate, and butyrate in proportion. And by the end of it, it grew the most beneficial species that we know of. Akkermansia, which is a keystone bug that supports your gut mucus layer, maintains the gut barrier itself, and has been associated with anti-inflammatory and metabolic benefits. So here's the part that I think is cool, and it's the entire philosophy. We didn't put Akkermansia in the formula. This emerged because the fiber and the polyphenols created the conditions for your own microbiome to grow it. So holding myself to the same bar that we've been talking about, that was a lab model of the gut. It wasn't a human clinical trial. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you that by itself, just that evidence, it's enough to seal your gut. But what I'm telling you is there's thousands of studies around fiber that support the benefits of fiber for feeding your gut microbes. And what we do know from that study is that daily microbiome nutrition can be the source of short chain fatty acids that you're working for. Bottom line, the verdict when it comes to fiber supplements, they actually work. So let's put the whole board up. Collagen, hype. Glutamine, hype for a healthy person. Butyrate pills, promising but unproven. Colostrum, promising but thin evidence, mostly in athletes. Zinc, carnosine, I like what I'm seeing, worth a look. And fiber, I see that as foundational. That is the best evidence on the list. And remember, most of these, I'm not claiming they're worthless. I'm just saying that the evidence is not necessarily for your gut barrier. Collagen for your skin, colostrum for fighting off colds, butyrate in a specific form for specific conditions. It's just not leaky gut the way that they're being sold. The two that actually hold up for the gut are the two that nobody's running flashy ads for. And here's the bigger truth. Your gut barrier was never going to be fixed by a single pill. It's built by a pattern, a diverse, fiber-rich, polyphenol-rich diet, plus sleep, plus movement and stress management, and all of the other good stuff. This is the entire reason that I wrote Plant Powered Plus. It's not just supplements. Yes, supplements play a role and they support, but you need the whole playbook for building the gut that you want. And the link is in the description. And that's how we do things on this channel. I'm here to read the studies for you, to break it down and tell you what actually holds up, and trust you to make a smart decision with the information that you now have. So the next time that an ad promises to seal your leaky gut overnight, you'll know the questions to ask. Is there human evidence? And is it measuring something real? That's the game. And if that's the kind of straight talk that you want, hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to keep delivering this week after week, video after video, so that you can continue to learn and improve your health. Take care of that gut. It's paying attention. And I will see you next time.